So how much should you really budget for a pool? Is it what you believe it should be? Is it what you want it to be? Or what are some of the things that you maybe just haven't even considered or other companies maybe haven't even shared with you? In this video, we're going to talk about all the things you should be aware of and things to consider when budgeting for a pool. Hi, my name is Chris Woods with Shasta Pools. I'm a sales manager here. I've been with the company for a little over 17 years. This is going to be a little bit longer video than maybe normal, but rest assured we have chapters down below so you can look at all the different topics that you should consider when budgeting for a pool. First, I'd like to tell you what the average pool cost in the valley. It's approximately in the mid 70s, low 70s, but it's in that range, all pool companies combined. Now I say 70s, but pools of course could be in the 40s. They could also be well over $100,000. That's just an average. Don't let the number scare you. It's just a matter of what your expectations are. The good news is the overall price of the pool itself is pretty much the main price, right? Like the pool shell, the concrete, the depth of the pool, maybe steps or benches, maybe some water features. That's still gonna be in that $50,000 to $60,000 range. Now that's turnkey. That's permitting, that's drafting, that's layout, that's the construction, that's any features, that's decking around the pool, whether it's concrete deck, whether it's travertine deck. And that might be even including some restoration and potentially even includes a little bit of landscape. So we have that baseline good realistic pricing for a pool. One of the first things to consider when budgeting for a pool is let's take a look at the barriers. Do you have a fence or a block wall around your property that will keep people from accessing the pool? Because the cities are definitely going to want to see that. So this could be one of those budgetary line items that could be maybe a few $1,000s all the way up to tens of thousands of dollars depending on the total scope of the barrier that you need. So it is a very important thing to consider because if you don't have a primary barrier, we can't even start building the pool. You know, if you're looking for a pool spa combination, so if a pool's in that 50 to 60 range, a spa typically might be in that $15,000 to $20,000 range. So you could simply, do the math on that, and with a pool spa combination, you're going to be probably in that $60,000 to $80,000 range. And of course, it could be more. If you add a water feature, you could do a rock waterfall. There's all kinds of sizes, there's all kinds of shapes, there's all kinds of locations. You could put that on the pool. That could range probably anywhere from, again, probably in the $4,000 range. And sometimes those really big, like polar bear exhibit type water features could go up to, $15,000+. So that one ticket alone could be a pretty substantial impact to the overall budgetary goal. Let's talk about the deck around the pool. Sometimes if you imagine it's like a sidewalk around the pool, the path you're gonna walk, or a seating area. If you wanna hang out, put some lounge chairs, some table, things like that. So I call that the deck. So the deck could be a concrete surface. It could be a paver surface, like a brick paver or a travertine paver, limestone, marble, things of that nature. So that decking can also have a pretty significant impact, and that's based on just the overall square footage of how much of that do you want around the pool or in your backyard. So the pools that I'm talking about in that $50,000 to $60,000 range, they're gonna have a decent amount of decking. But again, you could take a deck from say $5,000 all the way up to $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 just based on the square footage. So that's just something that we have to sit down, design, price, work within budgetary goals. And now that you have an idea, hopefully that'll help you plan a little bit. Let's talk about depth of the pool. So the depth of the pool, most pools are gonna be in that what they call play pool depth. And that just generally means like a 3-foot starting depth. Maybe it goes to 5 feet, or it goes from 3 feet to 5 feet in the middle, and then 3 feet on the other end, or 3, 5, 4. So that's kind of like a play pool, more shallow than not. You can then start going deeper, probably up to that 6 feet, 7 feet, 8 feet, 8.5 feet. You could potentially even go deeper than that. But when you start going deeper in depth, from 5 to 6 probably isn't that significant of a jump, but when you go start going deeper, it's more excavation required to dig a larger hole. You're gonna have more steel, more concrete. So everything you just need a little bit more of those materials and items to fill in that gap or that hole. So that's where going from say a 5-foot pool to maybe an 8.5-foot pool, depending on the size of the pool, of course. But it could be a $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, maybe $5,000 jump, and again, based on the size of the pool. The other thing too I would consider is if you're in an area, and this is one that most maybe not you wouldn't think of, not knowing what you don't know. But if you're in an area where you might need a grading and drainage plan, so a lot of times the county areas or outlying areas, once we start manipulating the earth or changing the elevations, or if your property does have some elevations or berms in the backyard, potentially it's a little more in depth, but you might need a grading and drainage plan, because the city or the county is going to want to see that once that pool goes in or other structures go in, that the drainage is still going to be appropriate for that property, and water is going to flow off your property to the appropriate location and not cause any issues for you or maybe your neighbors or the property around you. But that in and of itself could also potentially be, $2,000 to $4,000 for something like that. Pretty unlikely, but it is a possibility, and it's just something to consider out there. Other things, of course, would be just landscape. So we do have a full service in-house landscape team, but you just got to think about, so from the street, how do we get into your backyard? And then we're going to make a path back and forth there, probably hundreds of times by the time that pool's built. So who's going to fix that? How's that going to happen? Restore it. Could be granite rock, could be drip system, plants, trees, bushes, could be existing concrete, maybe existing stepping pads. So who's going to do that? And then just what's in the backyard. Again, you could have a clean slate, it's just all dirt, or you could have a nice, beautiful, fully mature backyard, and you're wanting to put a pool in there. So just who's going to fix things, who's going to repair things, what needs done, and the total scope of that, the overall picture, big picture of that, those are things to consider. Those could be very customizable depending on what's going on, but it could be as minimal as maybe $1,000, $1,500, and it could be all the way up to $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, just depending on what's going on. Demolition, if there's anything in the backyard that needs to be demoed, if you have an existing pergola, existing concrete, maybe you have an existing pool, those things need to be taken into consideration as well. So doing existing demo work, again, could be in the low thousands to $5,000, $10,000, probably quite easy. Another one of those things that when I first started in the pool industry, didn't make a lot of sense to me coming from the Midwest, but grass removal. Believe it or not, grass removal is an item that we have to charge for. So some of the landfills or dumps in the vicinity, they only take certain material, and some places only take real life vegetation, and some places that take dirt don't want the vegetation mixed in the dirt. So it can kind of get a little complicated, even though it seems quite simple. So removing of existing grass needs to happen, and there is a charge for it, because the excavator, generally, they have to take one load of stuff to one place to dump it. They have to come back, and they have to take the grass, in this example, and take it to a different place. So it takes time, effort, energy to do that, and therefore there's a charge. So equipment walls. So depending if your equipment is in the side yard, sometimes there may not be enough room in the side yard to hold your equipment. Now, this could be just because of codes or ease of access and use for servicing and just maintaining your equipment. Side yards are good if the equipment will fit appropriately and per codes, but a lot of times too, putting the equipment in the backyard is a great option. So how do you want to hide the equipment or camouflage the equipment so you can't see it? So you could do a block wall, you could do some landscaping. That in and of itself could be probably, again, $1,500, $2,000, $3,000 plus dollars. That is a line item that you may typically not think of, but again, that $2,000 to $3,000 can add up. Let's talk about elevations in the yard. That's another great topic, and one that can be a little confusing. So a lot of times when I go out to a backyard, it looks pretty flat. And to the untrained eye, when I ask the question, most people say, you know what, yeah, my yard's flat. We'll go out to the property, and it is pretty flat, I have to admit, but there might be a little berm at the back where it's just maybe 6 inches taller in the back. And sometimes the side walls, the left or the right property, they actually slope, or they slope differently. So your backyard is meant to drain, and typically it's meant to drain toward the front of the property on the left or the right. But we have to take that into consideration, because everything we do, we want to make sure that the pool, water flows away from the pool and flows away from your home to protect those investments. So to do that, sometimes we have to do some pre-grading, or we have to raise the pool, maybe lower the pool, do step pads, hold concrete or the decking off of your property walls or your house. So it's a lot of things that go into that. It's kind of those more boring details that maybe isn't real fun to talk about or discuss, and no one wants to spend money for it, but it is something that possibly could come into play based on the elevations of your backyard and where you're wanting your pool, your decking, and your landscaping. Another thing to consider when budgeting for a pool is sanitation. What kind of system are you looking for to sanitize the pool? There's a lot of different options, and there's a lot of good options, but this could range anywhere from a couple $100s to maybe close upwards of $8,000, $9,000, $10,000. So it really all depends what you're looking for. You're looking for chlorine, salt water, UV, ozone, or an oxygen system. The also thing to consider is cost of ownership. Even though some price points start less than others, the life and the cost of maintaining that pool with water chemistry, some of those lesser expensive options might actually end up costing more over the short and long term. So just ask questions about this, because this is definitely an item that you want to research and do your due diligence on when budgeting for a pool. An additional item to consider when budgeting for a pool, although maybe not quite as obvious, is electrical, believe it or not. So depending on what you're looking for that backyard lifestyle, how many pool pumps will that pool require? What kind of heating do you want? Is it gas or electrical? What kind of control systems are you looking for? What kind of sanitation systems are you looking for? What kind of lighting packages are you looking for? All those things can take electricity. So if the house panel, electrical panel, the main panel on the home needs upgraded, sometimes that's not too bad. It might range from anywhere from say $300 to $500, so it's not too bad. But if the house doesn't have enough capacity or enough amperage to run everything that's currently at your property and everything that the pool is possibly going to require, you then have to run bigger power or more electrical from the street to the house itself. And sometimes I've seen that could be anywhere from, maybe $4,000 to $10,000 plus dollars. So it can certainly be a big ticket item. We are definitely trained on the front end to look for those things or ask those type of questions to be aware of it. But when you're budgeting for a pool, you maybe haven't talked to anyone just yet, that is a strong consideration. And sometimes older homes might have a lack of power, or we, believe it or not, even seen some of the brand new homes just quite don't have enough power these days to do everything that you may want the pool to do to meet your expectations for that backyard lifestyle. So electrical, one of those things to maybe possibly consider. When budgeting for a pool, also just keep in mind, how do you plan on paying for the pool? Are you going to be financing it, paying cash, or maybe a little bit of both? Either way is perfectly fine. But if you have a general idea of a price point or a monthly payment that you're very comfortable with, that'd be tremendous information that would help you design the pool to meet your expectations from day one.